Welcome to Commander Central, episode 185, and today we'll be talking about the future of EDH. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm the guest, and they told me when to introduce myself, but I thought I would leave like a second or two, and they're like, oh no, does he not know he's on the podcast? Hi, I'm Jason Alt. I'm a guest.
Jason Alt, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going... I can't complain, but sometimes I still do, right? Like, it's going fine.
Good to hear.
Everything's great. You didn't want a real answer to that.
Right, no, you want to just keep things positive. We don't want to hear like, oh man, I've been having a lot of problems in life.
Yeah. I found this lump.
It's been feeling real grim around the house lately. I just sleep all day.
I do have a surgery next week, and there is a non-zero chance I'll die.
Oh.
But it's not a good chance, so it's just one of those things. So hopefully I'll be able to breathe better, and it'll be worth it.
Okay, all right. Well, nice. Do you have like a sleep mask situation going on now, or just to avoid that?
It's I have that, but also every sinus in my head is all stuffed up. Like all of them, like even the ones up like above my eye.
Ooh.
They're like, your sinuses are all jacked up. I was like, oh, that's why I haven't been able to breathe right for 12 years. They're like, yeah. They're like, I never noticed because I don't exercise.
There's actually a friend of mine who we play Magic with who just wound up getting like his CPAP machine for the first time. And his comment was like, I had no idea what sleeping was like until I got this CPAP machine.
Oh, I didn't know you're supposed to have dreams at night.
Right, yeah. I don't just wake up gasping every 3 minutes. So, yeah, apparently that's the thing you need to do is get a good night's sleep. So, Jason, why don't you tell everybody where they would know you from? Introduce yourself a little bit here.
Yeah, sure, no problem. My name's Jason Alt. I've been writing EDH finance articles since 2011. I currently write for MTG Price and Cool Stuff Inc., where I write the 75% EDH series, or Fuse a Call Commander. I'm the content manager on EDHRec.com, and I'm on the MTG Finance podcast Brainstorm Brewery and the MTG Lifestyle podcast Money Draft. And I'm on a film podcast called Film Hooligans with John Dunning of the They Said We Said YouTube network. And if you don't want to hear my opinions on Magic specifically, that would be a thing to check out. Other than that, I don't do much.
Yeah, you sound like you kind of slack off most of the time.
Well, I don't do anything else. Like some people are like, man, I don't have time to write articles. And like, yeah, you got a day job, idiot. Like, not me.
Well, you have a couple kids. You're a stay-at-home dad, right?
Yeah. It's the hardest job, right? It's the hardest job in the world. It's real easy. My daughter doesn't need me. So she's 4 and she's like, yeah, I made myself breakfast. You're good to sleep in another half hour. So yeah, my daughter's just going to raise herself, I guess. So that's a freebie.
Well, I will briefly tell you, listeners at least, my introduction to Jason Alt as a person like that I had contact with. When I reached out to EDH Rec to see about writing an article series, Jason responded to me. And it wasn't from the generic EDH Rec email, it was from Jason Alt's email. And my initial response is, oh dear God, why did they send me somebody who's actually well known in the community? I wanted to talk to like some anonymous person behind the scenes. Not someone I have to actually make a good impression. So you were actually intimidating to have to deal with, Jason. And you had...
Well, that's good because I feel like we kept the quality up just by virtue of, I don't know, people that didn't have a great pitch, not wanting to pitch.
Sure. Well, that was literally like my reaction was, okay, I guess I got to have it together here because this is somebody who's really a person in the community I'm dealing with now. So there you go.
If you do think you have a good pitch for EDH Rec, and so what we're looking for at EDH Rec for our article series is stuff that sort of contextualizes our data, makes the site easier to use, teaches people how to use the site more effectively or to build more effectively using our data, something related to that. If that's something you've got, I'd be interested in entertaining that pitch, and my email is altjason17@gmail.com, and there's also a styled submission guide on the EDH Rec website that has that email in it also. So if that's a thing you're looking to do, hit me up.
And I will say this, despite being intimidated by actually seeing that it was Jason Alt replying, you were very easy to deal with and had a lot of good suggestions, and it wasn't at all difficult. It was just intimidating at first to see your name on there.
We had lower standards also.
Back then, sure, yeah. Today
I didn't say no to anybody. That's not true, but
I just get blown off there like, who's this clown?
Yeah, whatever. I'm on a podcast. Ooh. Are you a middle-aged white guy?
Then of course you're on a podcast. Probably
they give
two.
you a podcast when you turn. If you don't have a podcast already, you get one when you're 35. When you're a white dude, it's like, do you have 2 friends? Yes.
You're on a podcast.
Would you like to talk about Thundercats?
Yes.
All right, you have a podcast now.
I have a friend who has a Scooby-Doo podcast, so you're not wrong.
I don't know what a Thundercats podcast would be called.
Thundercast.
Can you think of a good name? Thundercast.
We got it. Done in one.
We did
Tune
it.
in next week, everybody.
Thundercast is loose. All right. This cast is loose. I like it. I'm having a good time.
I'll be curious to see what our listeners' response is to us just basically riffing for
Get a
60
serious
minutes.
guest.
This is not the April Fool's episode, everybody.
No, we did that for April Fool's last year. We just talked about absolutely nothing.
For an hour and a half.
Yeah, the sports and Pokemon Go and like just random stuff for an hour.
Did people hate that or?
No, actually they liked it.
Oh, that's good. And that told you nothing about like releasing your riffing to your listeners?
Yeah, maybe we should do that more.
Maybe something for your patrons. Do you have a patron?
Yes, we do.
Patreon.
We do.
Go to patreon.com/whatever this podcast Patreon is. And give them $1 a month, which is as little as 20 or 25 cents an episode. You can have access to them talking about Pokemon Go.
We haven't actually got to the point of Brainstorm Brewery where we actually try to do things to annoy Patreon supporters.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. We blew. We are paycheck to paycheck with Patreon. It's like we have to wait until the 14th for the Patreon check to clear so we can pay our editor because we just blow it all in rewards. Like we spent mid four figures on Patreon rewards. Just like those custom Brainstorm Brewery pint glasses were not cheap, and people who give us $20 like one time got them. And it costs something like $27 to like make and
per
ship
glass.
2 of those. Yeah.
And I'm sure the flasks weren't any cheaper.
No, and we had those. We did a thing where we put their name on it for some of the people as like a end of the year reward. And like some dude who was a patron offered to do that, and he had to do all those, and that wasn't cheap either. And totally worth it. So like people aren't getting rich on their Patreons for the most part. They're mostly just trying to, I don't know, build a community where people have fun.
Yeah, that's kind of been what my experience with this is for most people as well. Like you just reinvest it in the show to kind of keep it growing and keep the audience happy.
The more Patreon money you have, the less you have to do for yourself, right? You're like, oh, I don't have to edit this anymore, or
I don't have to deal with taxes. You guys did a party at Indy last year, which I was intending to go to and then had to go somewhere for work, so I couldn't make it. But like, you guys even went to that level, which is pretty unusual.
We were very fortunate because we happened to have been sponsored by Channel Fireball for about a month. So CFB sponsors us. Channel Fireball, the place to buy singles. Trade in your cards for a 30% trade-in bonus now. I just wreck the ad copy they send us every week, and they're fine with that for some reason. Channel Fireball sponsored us, so they let us throw a party in the hall. So we were like right across the convention hall from the actual GP itself.
Nice.
And there was a horror convention too. So there were a ton of people just milling around, and like a lot of the people in horror makeup are like, oh shit, magic, I like that too. So there was just a lot of mingling. It was great. It was just a great weekend to be in Indianapolis.
Is there going to be an attempt to redo that this year?
Yeah, we don't know when. It's going to be a little tougher. But we would like to do another party. Just at some GP we think everyone's going to go to. And not at Vegas, because like there's too much going on at Vegas.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's a madhouse there just in general.
We would like to be the thing people are excited about versus like they're excited because it's Vegas.
Right. So how often do you actually get to play Commander?
A couple times a month, like not a ton. Having a young kid impedes that a little bit.
Oh,
and
yeah.
for a while there, I was doing a lot of stand-up. I was probably getting up 6-7 times a week.
Oh, wow.
And that makes it real tough to hit the LGS or, find your friend group. So I kind of got out of the habit of playing as much as I used to. So it's all I do when I go to GPs, though. Every second I'm in the hall, I'm playing EDH, and then that's it. But I don't go to as many GPs as I used to.
It's gotten so much easier to do that with the command zone now, too, so you're not like hopping from table to table trying to find a place to sit as they move in, draft pods or whatever.
Yeah, but I wasn't paying $100 to play Magic.
Yeah,
with
that's
my own
true.
Cards, so like that's crazy. Are they gonna follow me to the LGS and charge me to play there too? Like I don't know, man. It's getting nuts. Like I think the command zone's a good idea, but like they charge way too much. But people paid it.
Yeah, it does sound crazy, but like I didn't regret paying it at the events I went to.
And the Soul Ring's non-trivial value.
Right.
That's my MTG Finance tip. Those Soul Rings are really hot.
Yeah, that defrays a good chunk of the cost, and just being able to sit in a nice...
Still, I don't know how. Like they're like, oh, you're just going to flood the market by giving away hundreds of those every weekend, and nope, the cost has remained relatively high, which has been good.
And they actually have judges walking on in there, so they can help with like a situation where you need a judge call or something. I think it's been a pretty solid thing to have at all those events.
It's stress-free, in my opinion. You don't have to worry about,
Yeah.
hey, we need to do a draft here. Pick up your game. Oh.
Yeah, that always sucked.
Yeah.
And it was the same way for trading, too, but nobody trades anymore, which is nice.
Yeah.
There was nowhere to do that before.
So what's your current favorite deck that you play when you do get a chance to play?
Probably Teysa, the new Teysa.
Okay, Black-White Teysa.
Just because it kind of like does all the stuff that I assume Simic did. Everything doubles in that deck, and it's great. Every once in a while, they'll give us a new card like Sir Conrad or Woe Strider for it, so that's nice. I'm trying to make that Mindslaver tribal deck work.
Oh, with
and I think
Teysa?
the best way... No. Actually, it was Xantia, and then it's Chainer now, but I might make it... What's his name? The red-black Titan?
Oh,
Oxo?
Croxa.
Croxa, yeah.
Croxa. Yeah. I was thinking Uro and Croxa. I got them. Is it Oxo? Yeah, I might make it that. But Chainer's nice for playing your Goblins. So, like, Goblins gives you Welder and Engineer and Trashmaster and all kind of stuff like that. So, like, you have an Artificer sub-theme. So when you go Tribal Goblins, you can use Wart to get back dead Goblin Welder, stuff like that. So you have a really decent time of finding your tutors, because all your tutors tutor for each other.
Oh, yeah.
You have Mogcatcher, and you have Matron, and you have Goblin Recruiter. So anytime you draw that, you're like, well, I found my Goblin Engineer, which, finds my Welder.
Wow. Yeah.
Ooh. So you have a pretty decent chance of just being able to set up the Goblin Welder Mindslaver lock, which in 4-player is not as great as it is in 1-player. It's really annoying in 1-player. In 4-player, that Mindslaver is sort of like a rattlesnake. It's like, all right, if you pull too far ahead, you are going to make some really bad decisions on your next turn.
Well, and there's a lot of pieces involved in getting that off, too.
Yeah, but I mean, then you're just playing like a regular red-black, oops, I treacherous urged your creature, or I just Rakdos charmed you out of the game. Like, you're still doing magic stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Worst fears in there for a backup.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. I like that. That's cool.
I run every Slaver effect, including Word of Command.
Nice.
Worst fears, the million mana one, the one that's like 7-8 mana.
Yeah.
Cruel Celebration or something like that. Yeah, I'm running all that crap.
And that's the kind of effect
they
still do print too, so you might well get new cards for that, once a year or something too.
Yeah. So it's Goblins now, because before, when it was a Teysa deck, what I was doing when I Mindslavered people was I was doing more sacrifice stuff, because I was running like Jinxed Idol. So what you do is you would sack a creature to give them control of Jinxed Idol, you'd Mindslaver them, and then you would sack all their creatures, and then with the sacrifice effect on the stack, you would sack the next creature. So you sack their whole board of creatures to make somebody else gain control of Jinxed Idol. Or you give them Zurin Orb with Bazaar Trader, or the sorcery that gives creatures the other player control of your stuff. I'm bad with card names. Anyone who's heard me podcast is like, how is he...
The red one from Shadows of Innistrad?
Harmless Offering, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you give them something nasty with Bazaar Trader or something like that, and you just make them sack all their stuff if they get out of line. So it's really like you're the fun police at the table. It's kind of cool.
Nice.
But I couldn't make the deck work because I think I was running... You have to run too many clunky cards, Yeah. So I was running Brand and stuff like that. So I wasn't liking it. So I moved more to like, this is a Goblin deck that sometimes Mindslavers people is capable of just ripping the Mindslaver out of the pack and just generically Mindslavering somebody. You weren't setting up to make them have the worst turn ever because you gave them a Jinxed Idol or a Zurin Orb. So it was just, well, if you generically Mindslaver somebody, you're still going to wreck their turn, right? You're still going to... Everyone's got sack effects and everyone's got spells they don't want to waste.
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone's just... Anytime you Mindslaver somebody, you're going to usually take them from first place to second. And that's the goal. You're not trying to win doing that stuff, but you're trying to, like, if someone gets too far ahead, you're like, all right, calm down.
Well, that's a pretty 75%-ish deck as well.
Yeah, so that's why I'm so excited about it, because, like, it's like a kind of a way I was never playing Magic before. So that's why I think that's why I talk about that like it's my favorite deck right now, because it's been a lot of work to try to tweak it. And I had to abandon my first draft completely because it just wasn't working out. But it's very 75% to just just try to pull somebody in line with the rest of the table.
Well, that kind of thing gets harder and harder to do the longer you play, to making a deck that does something that you haven't already built a deck that does. Like finding some kind of a new hook gets trickier and trickier.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more you tune up a deck, like I think every 75% deck I've messed with ends up not being 75% anymore. Because it's like, well, why not?
Sure.
Why not just, you know what, screw it. Prosh deck is going to just get hated so much that you might as well just jam the stupid food chain in there and be done with it. So some of my decks just, like, people are just so hostile to, you might as well make them as optimized as you can.
Well, and that new card comes out and you're like, well, okay, I guess I could leave that Soul's Majesty in my deck and not put in Return of the Wild Speaker, but that feels dumb. Like, kind of, like, you're right, you feel like, why am I just giving away value on that card when I could just make one minor upgrade? So you do that, but then, like, 10 months later, you've done that 4 times. That's a really tough thing to control.
And I was running Soul's Majesty because this is supposed to be a stupid bulk rare format and not they gave us a 75 card brawl deck that has everything you need in it, It used to be a format where they would give us good cards accidentally.
Right.
And as soon as they started giving us cards on purpose, it spoiled the fun a little bit because it's like, well, you have to run this now. You're not going to discover anything. You're just going to get the stuff that they gave you for Atraxa. You did it.
Well, that's a kind of a good segue here, I guess, to what the main show topic was going to be about here. I said the future of Commander, and I kind of mean that in a real general sense. The future might be next week or next month or whatever. But you made that comment on Twitter about how you were much happier when Wizards was ignoring EDH and seeing...
Oh, yeah, and that fairly blew up. Something like 500 likes on that tweet, which is not unheard of, but not common for my tweets to get 500 responses.
So what is your thought process behind that? Expand on that a little bit.
Okay, they are giving us a lot of products.
This year's, I would assume, a record-setting year.
They called it the year of EDH or the year of Commander, and I'm like, great. Because first of all, there's wallet fatigue, right?
Right.
As a financier, I got to pay attention to all this stuff, and like every decision they make, every new card that makes a new deck possible makes a bunch of other cards go up. So I have to do a lot of work every time there's one new card, let alone like 5 new decks. And everyone can just say, well, this product isn't for me. It's not for everybody. But like you do that on a ton of products. It's like, okay, but is there anything for me this year other than the regular releases? Because if you're a Commander player, either everything is for you or nothing is.
Right.
So if everything's for you, what do? Do you buy all 5 decks? Plus, do you buy, if they do a Brawl deck again? Or are you buying the unsanctioned or unrequested or whatever the new one stuff is? You're paying $40 for 10 lands. Do you buy
the signature spellbook,
the mystery boosters, trying to get foil stuff? Like, there's just so much going on. People are starting to get fatigued, but also every time they purpose build stuff, either for Brawl or EDH, they sort of just take your choices away a little bit. Because if you look at the Brawl decks are made with standard cards.
Right.
So the commanders have to be better. But since they're EDH legal, if you go to EDH Rec, Chulane, Korvald, and Alayla were in the top 5 every week since they've been printed. If it's like Chulane's fallen off a little, but Korvald is the 20th most popular commander on EDH Rec in the past 2 years, which is as far back as we go.
And that's after 4 months of release.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Arcane Signet is in the top 100 most played cards. And Arcane Signet isn't just like, oh, it's a better Manolith or whatever. It's a ton of stuff.
Right.
Are you going to play Charcoal Diamond with Arcane Signet running around? Because Charcoal Diamond was fine before. Mindstone was fine before. I mean, Manolith wasn't great, but Darksteel Ingot was fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all of a sudden you've invalidated a whole swath of cards just on the basis of printing one card to make your ill-advised format work. This is almost a separate point from them focusing on EDH too much, but like, they should have focused more on EDH and thought more about how the format would be impacted by the things they gave us to make Brawl work, and Brawl's still not that popular. I think the more they focus on EDH, like the worse it's gotten. When they're like, we're gonna make the core set 2020, it was clear every legendary creature in there was designed with Commander in mind.
Right, yes.
Because they knew that was how they were gonna sell booster packs of that stupid set. Like 100%. So what was it, like Kaikar and Kethis and Arcades and
Yarok,
Nico Bolas and Yarok. Yeah, the set's just, it's dumb, and when you get so many obvious, here's how you build it, commanders in a short period of time, Like, Yarok is still in the top 25 each month, all this time later.
Yeah. Right.
Kaikar is too. Kethis, it took people a while to figure out how to play. I mean, not you with your stupid green legendary deck, but like a lot of people didn't see the appeal of Kethis right away. But having a commander that like ends up good that's what we used to like, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the only one that was from a commander deck that I played initially was Prosh. Everything else was just like a rare. Well, I mean, Maelstrom Wanderer was Plane Chase, but that was another set that like they weren't thinking about EDH and they made Plane Chase, which impacted EDH, but that was before anybody even really played EDH that much.
Well,
so
I had an article I wrote this week for EDH Rec, and the point I was making about this most recent wave of commanders is they're ones that when they hit the field and if they sit there for even a turn, they generate so much value that it permanently changes the face of the rest of that game.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a thing that was really an issue a couple years back. Like, as strong as Rafiq was, or as strong as Kalia was, you could reset the state of the game from whatever advantage they gained with a simple board wipe.
Yeah.
Then Rafiq would have to re-equip and spend a ton of mana, or Kalia would have to then hopefully have more dragons in hand that she could play for free. But if she didn't, a lot of Kalia decks stalled out after that first board wipe. That isn't the case with this wave of commanders right now, where somebody drops a Tulane and starts ramping 4 or 5 lands off mana dorks and refilling their hand with cards. And
then you wrath them and their grip is full. They have 5 more lands than you, and they just can go. They pay a little extra for their commander and then play a Shrieking Drake and go right back off.
Yeah. And that's true with, Muldrotha, and that's true with Yarok, and that's true with, it takes a Karloff to a degree. And like, there's half a dozen to 10 to 12 of these commanders right now where I felt like a couple of years back when I would see a really strong commander, even Prosh, for example. Like, if I got domed by a Prosh deck, my response in my head was always, okay, well, this week I need to maybe pull out, this and that and try to put 2 more answers in or something. When I get clocked by a Corval deck, mentally I think there's literally nothing I could have done about that much value aside from running one of those commanders.
Because if you threaten Corval, they can just, okay, well, I'll sack some stuff and just my grip's full again. Yeah.
Yeah, like the only response to those commanders is to run one of those commanders. Now, maybe the meta will settle in a year and that won't be the case, and people will have, I don't know. But right now, at least, that's very daunting. That has me kind of worried. I'm not saying it's going to kill the game or anything, but it's definitely a different thing than existed 2 years ago.
It's turning cards off. Anytime they print something that's that good, it turns a ton of cards off. Arcane Signet invalidated 20 cards. And another thing is, it seems like all these commanders either say draw a card explicitly, or they say draw a card implicitly.
Right.
Yeah.
Feather does not say draw a card, but Feather says draw a card. Kethis does not say draw a card, but it says draw a card. Right? Like, you're drawing a card. So there's Arcades that literally says draw a card, and then there's play something out of your graveyard, which, you drew a card. It seems like everything has card advantage now when it didn't before. Like you said, Kalia could dump your hand, but like dumping your hand is good until it's not. But like, if Kalia said every time an angel comes into play, draw a card and put a land into play,
it's a whole different deal.
Hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and talk about invalidating stuff, like looking at Tulane, there's almost any Bant deck that you're playing, no matter what your theme or plan or whatever is, you could probably put Tulane atop that deck and have it just be better. Like,
yep.
What a Rune of the Hidden Realm, the Blink commander in Bant. Rune blinks stuff, but like, I feel like you could just pull Rune out and put Tulane in, who doesn't care about blinking stuff, and it's a better blink deck.
Yep.
Like, I built my wife a Janara Angel tribal deck. Janara's an angel. There's like a +1 counter sub-theme in the deck. I still think Tulane would be better. Like, I could pull that Janara out and Tulane would do a better job.
99, yeah. Because Janara's like, when you draw it, it's going to be great in your Tulane deck.
Yeah.
What I really don't like about a lot of these recent commanders is they're almost hand-holding. Corval, they just tell you what to do on the card, and that takes the creativity out of brewing a deck.
Corval might as well have partner with Throne, or like Phyrexian Altar, right? Like, it might as well say partner with
Crucible Worlds, and
yeah, right. Partner with Grave Pact, like, you did it.
And there are new players who kind of maybe need that. I get that, and you made the point about how yes, Brawl using standard cards maybe does need stronger commanders. There has to be a better way to balance that, I think.
Your inability to make Brawl compelling is not EDH's fault,
Right.
but it's become EDH's problem.
For sure.
Although it's not just the Brawl commanders, it's definitely, we mentioned a bunch that were, made for Commander in non-Brawl formats that are a problem too.
Golos Tireless Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had this conversation 12 months from now after the year of EDH, how many more of those cards are there going to be that are in the pool now?
I'm not even worried about Korvold. I'm worried that in a year, Korvold will suck.
Because there'll be something better.
Because it'll be outclassed by two things, something in Ikoria and then something in September.
Well, Lord Windgrace was already something that came down, and I felt like, wow, that's almost as good as anything you're going to do in Jund.
Yeah.
And then Windgrace has now been outclassed by Korvold, even in a Lands Matter deck.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really curious. And I don't want to be doom and gloom. I'm not going to be like, this is ruining EDH, because I don't know if that's the case. But man, I'm a little bit worried about it in a way that I wasn't worried about stuff, say, 2 years ago.
They don't have to do this, though.
Well, no, they don't.
Because they could have just, EDH is your most popular format because, it's good. The way it developed is good. Remember we thought we were going to get EDH precons every other year? Remember that glorious moment? You're like, yeah. They're like, every year. And now it's like, every month. What are you going to do, nerd? Pick up Slay the Spire? No, give us your wallet. So what are you going to do? You're going to buy this stuff and you're going to build the new decks.
But I would probably be cool with that if I felt like they were commanders that were interesting and didn't necessarily warp the format around them. The concern, I guess, for me isn't how many that come out. It's the ones that are in those decks that are coming out constantly.
And they've accidentally gotten it right a lot, too.
Sure.
I was like, oh, I can play blue cards in Omnath now, and they gave me Risen Reef? That's cool. But then everything else everyone was doing is just everything draws a card. On one hand, it was cool that they gave us an upgrade to Omnath because I really like playing Teamer the most in Commander because my first really good deck was Maelstrom Wanderer. Thanks, Food Chain.
Right.
That was my first, oh, this is what I want to be doing kind of deck. And now I've just, I've gone so far toward, trying to keep that deck from being a pub stomper that I put crap in it just because it's foil. I'm running Confiscate in Maelstrom Wanderer just because I have a Japanese foil of it. I do dumb stuff like that. But I've had to make a conscious effort to do dumb stuff like that. The format isn't really compelling or even making it easy to do stuff like that.
Well, that's one of the things I've definitely made an attempt to do in the last year or so is to run at least one suboptimal pet card in all of my decks. I tend to play with a theme anyway, so it's definitely tends to be suboptimal, but even then you can optimize to the nines if you want to go that route. So I've had to force myself to be like, okay, well, in this deck I'm going to run Psychic Possession because it's a fun card I love to play, even if it might not be the best way to do things. And
just run Trading Post and everything. That's what I do. That's my pet card, and I love it.
Trading
so
Post is a card that's probably got outclassed. It's a
colorless Planeswalker.
Yeah. Well, it's probably got outclassed by the
lot
game,
of games.
But it's a super fun card.
Yeah, it's won me a lot of games.
So we've already had 4 Secret Lairs this year. We have the Mystery Boosters coming out in a few weeks. We have Signature Spellbooks, the Commander Spellbook, Core Set, the 5 Commander decks, and another 2 in the fall that are pretty much reprints. And then, of course, Commander Legends. With this level of reprints, is the new normal moving forward? Is this the new normal? And what's going to be the impact of it for the EDH players in the community?
I think most of those products give people the chance to run different art of cards they already have, and that's fine. People like that. It's a new access to optimize your deck. Instead of replacing with a brand new card, you just get a new art on something you've already got. I don't like Secret Lair because it cuts the LGS out of the equation, but I really like the Commander Spellbooks. I like the FTVs when they still did those.
Yep.
I like anything that your LGS can figure out how much they'd like to mark it up because it gives the LGS the choice. And bad LGSs, people will be like, oh, my LGS charges this much. And some people are like, my LGS is good. It does this. I like when the LGS can control their fate a little bit. I don't like when they're cut out of the process. So when you have something like the Secret Lair that is people like, it's very popular, I think cutting the LGS out is a poor decision, and it seems Hasbro-based to me. It seems like a Hasbro decision more than a Wizards decision. Because Wizards is like, hey, how about Commander Spellbook? I like the Commander Spellbook concept. And they're not always great, but hey, Shielded by Faith just became a thing, and now you have a bunch of easy ways to get those. Worship was always good. I was playing True Conviction, and now I have better art. It's great. I got my Rest in Peace that way, because I sold all the rest of mine. Stuff like that. So
And it maybe knocks the price down in a few of the original versions of cards to make them easier to get for people as well.
Sure does. Can you imagine putting a No Mercy or something like that?
Right.
Like a Liliana deck, or, anything that's not on the reserve list, but everyone just assumes it is, could go in something like that. And you could sell it at an LGS and it would be great, because you can't play F&M at Amazon.com. You just can't. Some people are all Richard Dawkins about it, like, well, the good LGSs will survive. I'm like, cool, you're being like a LG eugenicist. Like, that's kind of lame, right? Like,
well, and not every LGS can afford to have a giant amount of floor space and sell coffee and donuts or whatever, the successful shops that people are thinking of can afford to do that. You can't do that if you're every single shop.
And the big ones in a big city where people already have choices to play, is great. But there are towns with one LGS.
Right.
So if there are 4 in a town and the bad one goes out of business, who cares? But if there's 1 in town and it's gone, I guess if your goal is to push those people to Moto, so eventually you're just a digital card game and you don't have to ship cards anymore, cool, you did it. You put a bunch of people out of business. You took the Gathering out of Magic the Gathering. You did it.
I'm not even sure if the people making these decisions at Hasbro are thinking that far ahead. I think the thought process is probably just how much more money can we make ourselves, regardless of what the long-term consequences are.
Well, you got to wonder if some of these decisions are made by someone who's been working at Wizards since the 90s, or some dude who just oh, we really love the way you implemented Angry Birds Monopoly. We're going to give you a promotion to digital card games or whatever.
I think it feels like the latter way more than the former.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's like the Peter principle, right? Like, people get promoted until they stop being promoted because they're not as good at their current job as they were when they kept getting promoted, and that's where they stall out. Who knows who's making these decisions, but I didn't answer your question at all.
No, you did.
Because it let me rant about the Secret Lairs, and I, as terrible as the implementation on the Mythic editions was, I think the Secret Lairs being well implemented is worse, because they're too much money for what they are, but also people want them.
Right.
And I'm the kind of person that will spend that money. So at the same time, these are too much, but also, gimme. So there are enough people out there that pay that.
Yeah. Well, I bought the Bitter Blossom one because I'm like, well, I don't have a Bitter Blossom, and at some point I'm going to build a deck that will want that. And it's roughly the same price to buy this as it is to buy, one of the other printings, and it's, different art, whatever. So I bought the Bitter Blossom, but that means that's not one I will buy from my LGS now. In hindsight, that's just money that has bypassed my LGS with just accidentally by me just saying, well, I'm going to want it at some point, so I grabbed it. Multiply that by how many, thousands or tens of thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
With this level of reprints and, particularly venues for reprints, I guess, which is, I think, good for the average player in a lot of regards, but does that kind of change what people should be holding at home? To give you an example, for a lot of years, you could hold on to extra Magic cards that you weren't currently using. Many would go up, but at least for the most part, they weren't going down. With this huge amount of reprints we're getting this year, does that change what people should be holding on to?
Most people don't notice.
Okay.
They don't pay attention. 90% of Magic players are in the holy crap, Ophiamancer's $12 camp, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah.
That's 90% of people. They're like, I just got that for a deck and brr, brr, brr. Or they're like, oh, wow, this was $1. I paid $9 for it. But you don't even see those tweets because, who cares? Most Magic players just buy Magic cards and play Magic cards, right? So, the price is different than when they bought it. That's all they know. The price is not the same. But Magic players aren't opening TCG player accounts to sell a Ophiamancer for $12. They're just like, no one trades. No one gets rid of their stuff. Magic is just, if you kayaked, you wouldn't be like, my fiberglass kayak's worth $400 less than what I paid. You're just like, yeah, I have a kayak.
Right.
That's a good point.
For a lot of Magic players, their collection is a kayak. And when they get out of Magic or kayaking, they go to Craigslist and I'm selling a kayak. And someone like me comes along and is like, great, I buy kayaks. Because I know what I can resell them for. Because I have a kayak store. Most Magic players don't have a kayak store.
This is the best analogy ever.
They're not gonna get kayak retail, right? You're just not, because you're just some guy. So just sell me your kayak. I'll do the work to get the most money out of it, and then you're not kayaking anymore. And now girls will talk to you. So,
in theory,
it's a very good analogy. So, for most kayakers, reprints don't matter.
Wait,
they're gonna lose some value. Maybe, But I think if they pay less later, they'll be happy too. So
Sure.
if something's not reprinted every year, it'll probably go back up if it's played enough to matter. So
I went to pick up a Sylvan Library this week at my shop, and
Sure.
that's more expensive now than it was right before that last reprint in whatever it was in. Was it in 25?
Eternal Masters.
Or Eternal Masters? Okay. It's more
Yep.
expensive now than it was before it got reprinted, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was.
there's a concept in MTG Finance I like to call discovered demand, where a card is $25 and nobody knows what it does because it's so much money. Like, people would like to play Living Lands, right? If you put Living Lands in a master set and all of a sudden it was $5, everybody would be like, oh, this card's nuts. And then Living Lands would go up to like what it was before. I should use a non-reserve list card, for example, but you take my point, right?
Yeah.
There are some cards that are so expensive, people will just never play them. And no one in their group will introduce them to them. And it's just like $40 and up, I guess, usually.
Mm-hmm.
If a card's $40, most players don't see it. And then if you print it and make it $15, people are like, holy crap, that's great. And then all of a sudden, people that never would pay $40 paid $15, and now all of a sudden you can't pay $15. You have to pay $45. Because all the copies are in brand new decks that never would have run that card before. So I feel like when you introduce cards to people by virtue of reprinting them, I think you increase demand.
Well, I think the other element of that is this is something I've noticed. Once somebody gets one copy of that card that they couldn't afford previously, that then turns into them buying one or two more copies for other decks that can run it.
Sure.
So like that person who couldn't afford the Sylvan Library before, or who just didn't even really know it existed, and then suddenly there's a bunch of them at their LGS because it got reprinted, and they crack one in a pack, whatever. They put it in a deck, or they see someone else use it that they didn't see before because it was expensive and obscure. Now suddenly it becomes a thing, and like the demand is not just one card; it kind of spreads among multiple decks, multiple people.
And people who don't have $45 coexist alongside people who do have $45.
Yeah.
Someone who doesn't have $45 will never buy a Sylvan Library. You know?
Mm-hmm.
If it's $15, they'll buy one. Someone who won't pay $45 for a Sylvan Library but does have $45 might pay $45 for 3 of them.
Right.
And then they've taken 3 copies out of the market.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a fascinating cycle. I've gotten a little gun shy about holding a few things based on the amount of reprints this year, but like I shouldn't be holding onto 5 Cabal coffers that I'm not using anyway, regardless of how many reprints are coming out. So a lot of it's kind of common sense
You
too.
have 5 Cabal coffers?
I do.
I sell my stuff, right? I don't care. I just sell, and like if cards go up later and I sold it for less, that's fine.
As long as
Stuff
you made
goes down.
something, what matters.
I always sell a card for more than I paid, so I don't care.
Sure.
What it does later. You know, if it goes up later, I'm like, I could have made more money, but so what? I was selling, I have money in my pocket because I sold that card. I don't have to pass on collections because I'm not sitting on $12,000 in theoretical value of, just having my Cabal cover sit there, right?
Yeah.
So if you sell cards, it doesn't matter. You're not. Some people think like finance people don't like reprints, but we actually love them because I will sell way more $12 copies of a card than I will $30, right? If a card's $30, I will sell one a year. If it's like $10, I'll sell one a month. And if I pay $6 and sell it for $10 versus paying $20 and selling it for $30, yeah, the money you make is better when you buy it for $20 and sell for $30. You're only making $4 or $5 flipping 6 to 10. But if you do that 12 more times, you made more money anyway. So
Right.
We actually do like reprints. We're taking the risk by holding the cards. But a card that goes down in value while you're holding it is your punishment for not being efficient enough at selling, right?
Sure.
Like, that's what happens. You are going. If I have a card and it was $45 and I paid $35 for it and it goes to 20, I'll buy a bunch more for 10, and then the average price I paid is 13. So I'm like, I paid 13 for that instead of 10. No big deal. So we don't even care. So players like reprints, financiers like reprints. Stores like reprints because they can pay less and they'll sell more copies of it just because people are like, oh, this is affordable now. Reprints make the world go round. I don't like when they reprint a card 3 times in like a 18-month period. Like a card's $40 and they just keep reprinting it.
You like black market? Here's another black market.
Oh, you guys wanted a black market reprint? Well, have we got news for you? And it's a mystery booster. Screw it. So I don't think it's a problem. I don't think anyone's going to be too terribly upset by more reprints than usual in a year. And at least they're being creative about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Explorers of Ixalan was fantastic. I love that because like even though people didn't love that, reselling it was great. People would buy just like the game pieces out of the box, like the non-card game pieces. Those could be sold. So if you got a deal on the board games, you could sell all the components of it and make money. And it introduced a ton of reprints that were needed. Like, what was it? Gratuitous Violence or...
Yep.
Was Shared Animosity in there or something? One of those red enchantments that...
Yeah.
An extra turn spell was in there.
Yeah, it was a Time Warp and Threads of Disloyalty. Like, there were good reprints in there. And the game was fun to play 1 or 2 times. And then you had magic cards.
Right, you didn't feel bad about buying it.
If you buy Dominion and then you hate Dominion because your one friend's too competitive at Dominion and you just don't want to play, you're stuck with a $35 box of garbage. But if you play Rivals or Explorers Ixalan twice and you're like, oh, okay, we're done with this, you have magic cards. It's the best. It was such a good way to do reprints. I can't give them enough credit for finding new ways to do that. And the mystery boosters, similarly, I think is great.
I have not played it.
People are complaining about their choices today on Twitter, but no.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but like the response from literally every person has been just glowing about what a fun time it is to draft that and play it at an event.
Kickstart? Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
Have you heard about this? Kickstart?
Jumpstart.
Great.
Jumpstart.
Is it Jumpstart?
Yeah, it's Jumpstart.
Like
Jump
the
kick.
mechanic.
But yeah, I mean, that's a great idea too.
What is it called? Jump kick? That's going to be great. It'll be a fun thing to do 2 times at the LGS, and then you have magic cards.
Yeah.
You mentioned different alt art for stuff on reprints before, and you've talked on Brainstorm Brewery whenever people ask you about, like, is this basic land a good one to invest in? And you always say that there's just so many basic land options, and it's down to personal taste that it's just not worth messing around with. Have we kind of hit that point with alt art for regular cards now to a degree? Like, even the last couple sets, there's already this hierarchy of you got a pack card and a pack foil and the extended art and the extended art foil and, a box topper or a Secret Lair version that are all dropping in like, a 1 month window sometimes or simultaneously. Is that causing issues a little bit, do you think? Are we at an oversaturation point where everything is special? Okay.
It's very different.
Okay.
Because basic lands are fraught. As soon as they're like, we are going to do extended full art basics again. They did it the first time in Zendikar, and everyone was like, oh, this is a cool thing, and the lands were going up in value. And as soon as they said they did it again, they went down in value more than they would have normally. Because it's not only like we are reprinting full art basics, like we are reprinting the concept of full art basics in booster pack sets. Booster pack sets, right?
Right.
I bought a ton of Unglued back in... I bought Unglued with, like, allowance. That was 97, 98, right? Like, I was buying first confirmation money booster packs to get those lands. That was novel. And it took them a long time to come around again and, like, do it in Unhinged or whatever. And then it took them an even longer time to put it in a set people are actually going to buy. But once they pulled off that Band-Aid, like, no, we'll do this a lot. Even something like the Constellation basics that look really, really good. I mean, they're Pokemon energy cards, but they look good.
Yeah.
If you like that. Even those, they're not as worth as much as they could be just because they're like, look, we are willing to beat this concept to death. So I think the fact that a basic land can be in any set is different than like, well, we got 2 different versions of Return of the Wild Speaker or whatever. Or I guess 4?
4,
maybe?
yeah.
4.
Set card or pack card, pack foil, and then
collector,
full art foil. Yeah. Even with that, they're not going to put Return of the Wild Speaker 2 sets from now. So like, yeah, there's 4 different versions when there was 1 or 2 before, and that's a thing, but also it's not going to like, it's not going to, I'm not going to say don't buy your Great Henge Collector's Edition because, the value's not going to be there. I think it goes up because the Great Henge is a great card. And they're not going to put the Great Henge in another set.
Well, and I guess
not the way they came with basics.
I guess the Soul Ring thing we mentioned before with the Command Fest or Magic Fest Soul Rings was maybe a good example. There's of course, people want to run the, Beta Soul Ring or something as like maybe the premier version. But there's also the, Invention version, and there's a Judge foil, and there's a From the Vault that I think is the only foil version of that particular piece of art. And despite all of those in existence, the Magic Fest one that you can get at any Magic Fest for going into the command zone is still a $50 card. So like the sixth best premium version
The
of that Soul
dealers
Ring is
are
$60.
helping that. Now, we could talk. I'm not going to bore your non-finance cast listeners with the economics of it, but the dealers buying on site enforces that price.
Yeah.
Okay.
The fact that you can go to a dealer and immediately offload it, and the fact that the dealers can offload it for money enforces that price. Because the dealers end up with most of those copies. If it doesn't go in a deck and disappear forever, it's going on eBay or whatever, but like, you know, for the most part, the dealers are buying in the room and they can control what they sell for. So nobody's fire selling it. No dealer's paying $15 on those on site and selling them for 17. You know, no one's doing anything insane like that. So the price is still enforceable. And it's still going to remain high. So that was a brief aside, but like that's why them being at a GP where there is competition amongst dealers to buy those.
Well, and where the players, you know, kind of like the idea of basically defraying a good chunk of the cost of what they pay to get into the Command Fest or Command Zone.
Mm-hmm. It gives them a little bit of confidence and it's like, wow, I don't like paying all this money to play with my own cards when it should be free, but yeah, I get non-trivial value out of it, so I'm going to do it. So those Soul Rings are popular, and I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah,
I do like the 2
card.
pip Soul Rings versus the 2 in a circle Soul Rings.
I mean, I still think the Judge foil of the original art is my favorite.
Well, my favorite is German 4th edition, so I'm a little bit weird.
When Sheldon was on the EDH Recast, we asked him if he had any thoughts about what would kill the format, and he answered that, you know, basically codifying it into like a tournament format would do it. Do you have any thoughts about what would kill Commander?
Something better. Something that, like, it's 2 things are going to need to happen simultaneously. The first is EDH is going to have to get so far away from what everyone likes about EDH, and that's happening to a small extent, but I think it would almost need to happen maliciously, which I don't think even people making bad decisions are going to be able to get EDH so far from the spirit of what people like about it that, you know, it'll be done forever. The second thing is something emerging alongside it that is in the spirit of what people liked about EDH and it emerges as a competitor. So I think everybody shifting to that where they're like, well, I like the EDH experience. EDH isn't EDH anymore, but 3DH or whatever new thing, you know?
Sure.
That's what I like. It's called Lieutenant, and you can only play with cards that weren't in Commander Precons or whatever.
Well, I mean, it's been tried a few times too. Like, you know, I feel like Brawl is a bit of an attempt at that, or Oathbreaker, or Tiny Leaders. Like, people have taken their shots. Yeah,
and like those formats always just ended up feeling more like Legacy than EDH.
Yeah.
So something emerged that I mean, people aren't going to play Oathbreaker because they like EDH too much, you know? So, like, as much as it could be worth it to have, like, one Brawl deck and one Oathbreaker deck, you know, just if someone wants to play that with me. So, I do have those things. Actually, my Oathbreaker deck is dumb. I don't even like it. It's Saheeli, and it's just like, well, I play 0-mana artifacts. I did it.
Well, Oathbreaker is one of those formats, too, that I felt like whenever I've looked at it closely, it's super easy to break.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem. Because, we had some Oathbreaker data on EDH Rec, and like it became clear very quickly what the favorite decks were.
Right.
It was like Nissa Crop Rotation was like number 1 or number 2. It was real dumb real fast. Like it got solved right away. So I think an unsolvable format emerging alongside EDH abandoning its values would kill it. And that's why I think that's Sheldon saying if it became codified as a tournament format, you're taking something, you know, that's a Clockwork Orange, right? You're taking something and making it something completely different. Maybe if it did become a tournament format and then something else casual came along at the same time, that would kill it. But other than that, EDH is strong.
And I think
it's strong, man.
I think the rules committee and the CAG even do a really, really good job with a really, really difficult task.
No one's going to be happy.
For sure.
So, like, people think their unhappiness is somehow evidence that they're not doing their job, but like, imagine a world where they make an announcement or a decision and people are happy. Because people are unhappy about so many different things, it's like, well, that's you. If everyone like was unanimous in what they hated about the rules committee, it would be fine. But like every small little subgroup has their own grievance with it, and that just tells you people are just not going to be satisfied. They could be doing things better, but at the same time,
it's almost always the most myopic grievance possible too.
Yeah.
I think the one thing the CAG could really use is somebody with a lot of experience in the format who has a background in finance and can understand how a lot of these decisions impact the game as a whole.
Can you imagine if someone with a background in finance was on the CAG and they had like a 2-3 week head start on knowing what was going to get unbanned?
That's true. That's a good point.
Hey, why did Jason Alt buy all the Protean Hulks on eBay?
Well, that already happens. There's already, like, whenever something's banned or unbanned, the accusations fly. So yeah, I suppose having you on there would just open you up for, you'd be definitely villain number one at that point.
So Sheldon did not say Jason Alt is not on the CAG because of finance, because someone asked about it. What he said was, we can't have a finance person on the CAG. I don't think I can be on the CAG because I'm polarizing.
That's a fair point.
That's what I think.
Maybe you would take the heat off Sheldon then.
But I absolutely could not be because of the finance stuff. And I'm fine with that because everybody that is on there is doing such a good job. I don't think I would improve anything.
I think they've done a really impressive, job front to back so far. I've been really happy with how it's turned out.
It's the brightest minds in all of MTG. It's great.
All right. Any final stuff from you, Max, here?
No, not really.
I have a question, Jason, I guess based on your scientific expertise, and this is entirely an opinion, but so coronavirus.
Is this about coronavirus?
It is.
Jeez.
Because my
wife has a master's degree in public health, so she knows a little bit about epidemiology.
Okay. So I was
Wash your hands.
I was looking to buy plane tickets, and I'm like, do I want to wait and see where this is going to buy plane tickets for Magic Fests?
Well, whether or not it is rational, things are getting canceled.
Yes.
GPs in Europe are getting canceled.
Yeah.
Events on the West Coast are getting canceled.
Like Riot Games has canceled a couple of their events.
Yep. And sometimes people are upset, like the Game Developers Conference that got canceled, but also TED got canceled, so it isn't all bad. I like TED, I just thought was a generic joke to make. I think some more stuff is going to get canceled because as much as it's like, geez, wash your hands, this the coronavirus is no joke, man. 2% mortality rate is significant.
Yeah.
For sure.
If it had the same communicability as something like the Spanish flu with a 2% mortality rate, this would be like a serious pandemic. Right now, it's not a global pandemic per se, but it is something that just being careful who you shake hands with doesn't quite do it. So I think maybe people are overcorrecting by canceling stuff, and I think that'll get better soon.
Hope so.
Because I wouldn't, if you're talking an event 2 months in the future, I think things would have to get like Doomsday Prepper bad for you to be like, dang, I shouldn't have bought a ticket to, Omaha.
And at that point,
July.
you probably have bigger things to worry about than losing some airfare.
Sure, man. It'll be Mad Max and we're only a couple months away from,
just buy the travel
selling
insurance.
our children for a gallon of gas. It's
Right.
going to be real bad. That's why I use all the proceeds from my MTG finance business to finance my real passion, which is doomsday prepping. I'm just a doomsday prepper, and I have a basement full of Purell, and I'm going to be charging one Black Lotus for a squirt of Purell very soon. So, I mean, we're joking now, but 2% mortality it's significant. I think it's going to get people to tighten up, right?
And it's going to get
buy
worse
masks,
before it gets better.
Yeah, but I also think the way it gets introduced into this country is going to be attenuated a little bit. I think maybe a few Grand Prix are going to get canceled, but for the most part, I think you're relatively safe making travel plans. Now, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I will say I wouldn't panic.
Okay. So then, assuming all is well, what are your plans this year for events you're looking to go to?
Well, I have a very young son, so it's going to be tough. I'm probably going to make it to Milwaukee. I cannot make Detroit because of my surgery, which sucks. I really wanted to go to Detroit. Probably going to try to go to Milwaukee and maybe Vegas. And Brainstorm Brewery is looking to have a party somewhere, and that'll be a third one I go to.
Nice. Okay.
Awesome.
And we have not got a Command Fest announcement yet, so who knows if we'll even have those anywhere at all. I'm kind of unsure what the delay is there or why they're holding it, but they don't seem to be in any hurry to get those out there for people to make plans for.
Well, I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
There are a ton of GPs left, our Magic Fest, I'm sorry. And if they all have a command zone, maybe what's the point in running a
maybe
Command Fest and having to worry about double booking a weekend. You don't want a Command Fest on the same weekend of some of your biggest Magic Fests like Vegas or Seattle, or even like Washington, D.C., so it's hard to double book places.
Or maybe maybe it'll be like last year, they just do 3 of them at the end of the year, and that's just what it's going to be. It's just a couple of them a year at, around Thanksgiving or something, and that's it.
Very well could be.
All right.
I don't think they know either, but
yeah, maybe not.
If they did something, it would be good to go to one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Chicago last year, and it was a good time.
Yeah. Next year when my kid's a little older, I think it'll be easier to neglect him.
Well, for me, it was like once my son hit 5 or 6-ish, I felt way more comfortable being a bad father, 1 night a week or 2 nights a week, something, going to do things than I did when he was like 4.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a limit there where it gets easier to get away without you feeling like you're being neglectful. Well, Jason, thank you very much for guesting. We appreciate it.
Yes, thanks, Jason.
No problem, Max. You didn't talk much. I think that's my fault.
I am not a lot of help in that regard either. I tend to just drone on as well, so
it's hard when it's remote sometimes.
And you had interesting stuff to say, Jason, so it's all good.
You were such a kiss ass. I'm not giving you a raise, dude. Did you just bring me on here to butter me up?
That was the goal. We'll talk offline.
Oh, you're so intimidating when I had to talk to... Oh!
In person, you're less intimidating. How's that?
Oh, you do think the EDH Recast is going well? Really? I've been meaning to talk to you about that.
That's his other show, Jason. Remember that. That's his other show.
That is his other show.
Yes, the boss said it. I win, Matt Morgan.
Well, I will also say that I didn't originally pick Dana for the EDH Recast just because he was already on this show, and I wanted to get somebody who wasn't podcasting regularly to have a shot, but I'm glad I do have someone who knows what they're doing on that podcast.
Well, Joey's done a nice job.
Why are you buttering up your main host on your other show?
Because he edits my articles.
In 2 years, Joey's going to work for Wizards,
for sure.
We'll all have to suck up to
Yeah,
him.
Joey's got a pretty good future ahead of him, I would say. Okay, that is going to wrap this up. Our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. Our show's edited by Rafael Garcia. You can find him on Twitter at Ursa Bearwalker. You can find me on Twitter at Dana Roach. You can find Max at CMDRCentral_Max. You can find Chris at YSquishy1. Jason, where can they find you?
I am on the Twitter at Jason E. Alt, and I have a pinned post at the top of my page where you can see all the things I do online. I provide links to everything, including my Patreon, where you can just give me money just for being entertaining.
Excellent. We will be back on Thursday with another show. Until then, I am Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm out of here.